Okay, we're starting. So welcome. I'm Edwin Rutch from the XR Empathy Circle work group. So welcome to this Empathy Cafe. I wanted to just give you, just show you the outline for the meeting today, our agenda. So we have the welcome. We're going to just go around, do short introductions, just your name, contact info, what XR group you're part of and where you're from. Just a little about the topic. We'll check, see how much everyone knows about the Empathy Circle and just give a little primer to how to take part in Empathy Circle. Then the main part is we're going to be going into our breakout empathy circles. We'll probably do 2 groups. And then about 15 minutes before the end, we'll be coming back for a debrief, just to report back what we came up with, kind of the discussion in the empathy circle. So let's see, we could go around, introduce ourselves. Do you want to lead that, Carolina, this time? Just call on people and have them introduce themselves.
Okay, so I will follow my screen and I will maybe introduce myself first. My name is Carolina. I'm calling from Poland, Central Europe. I am member of local XR group, but also a member of international support team and empathy circle team as well. And next on my screen is Sky.
Hi, I'm Sky. I live in Santa Cruz, California, USA. I'm also part of XR Friends with the French International Team for Participative Democracy. And I'm also part of the Rebels Beyond Borders, where we organize a trip for COP26 with a tour of planet, bicycling tour all over the world. Yeah, that's me. I will pass on to going.
Thank you.
Oh,
I will try to, yeah, so we don't lose anybody. Okay, Ben Stollery. Ben Stollery, would you introduce yourself? You are muted.
Yeah, I'm Ben. I live in Totnes in the west of England, Devon. And I've been involved in XR for a year, particularly interested in sort of new democratic forms like the People's Assemblies, but been a lifelong activist in this sort of environmentalism and all of that stuff. Yeah, I just came across this form. I really enjoyed watched the one last night with Rupert and Skeena and was very impressed. Looking forward to it.
Okay, thank you. Bill, would you introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Bill. I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area. I'm a member of the Empathy 10 team and also the XR Empathy Cafe team.
Thank you. Marta?
Hi, I'm Marta, originally from Portugal, but living in Ireland, part of XR here in Cork, and nationally involved with region and with the empathy cycle.
Yeah. And Ben Mann.
Yeah, my name's Ben. Been going to XR meetings for about 3 weeks in Sheffield, UK.
Okay. Okay, thank you. James, would you introduce yourself?
James, I'm in Syracuse, New York. I'm not affiliated with an XR group.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Steve. Are you there, Steve?
Yep, no, I had to unmute, thank you. Steve Buckley, I'm in Massachusetts, east coast of the US. I am an environmental engineer, formerly with the federal US government, but very interested in the democracy aspect of environmentalism.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. And back to you, Edwin.
Okay, so thanks. We wanted to talk about the topic today is about the XR Story and Vision 2020, and there was a paper done by this one here. I don't know if is everyone's read it. Just curious, getting everyone's read it. No, no. Okay, so it's sort of a different vision for XR. One of the it's rushing the emergency, rushing the rebellion. Part of it is that there's too much of a rush towards action, I think, and maybe wanting a little bit more of a more dialogue around this. So anyway, it's just going to have an open discussion about this paper, or just anything that you would like to about XR and the vision, and what kind of vision do you see for XR going forward, and also whatever's alive for you. You don't have to stay on that topic. You can talk about whatever is really a burning issue for you. And Martha and I had done an empathy circle with two of the authors of this. It was Skeena Rathor and Rupert Reed. So I don't know if some of you have seen that. So you have a little bit of a sense of what we talked about there. So that's pretty much it in terms of the topic. And then the second part here is we'll be using the empathy circle practice. We'll be dividing into two circles, and just who has sort of seen the how to do the empathy circle. Just wondering, how do you feel? So everybody looks like everybody feels comfortable with the process. We don't have to go into it. Do an extended. Steve, did you feel comfortable with the empathy circle process? I mean, not taking part, or do you need a primer? Yeah. Okay.
No, I've done it before. Yep.
Oh, you did? Yeah. Right. Okay. Yeah. Just not seeing you, so it's hard to associate the name and the face. So yeah, I remember now. You're in a couple. So I think with that we can divide into two circles. We can go right into it. Bill, would you do the second circle, and
Sure.
Martha, maybe the first one? Or do you feel okay with that, Martha? I don't want to spring it on you. Or...
Can someone else do it?
Okay.
My brain's just a bit slow today.
Carolina, do you want to do it?
Okay.
I'll be in the first one, so I'm going to take you out of that one, add you here, and then move to room 2. So I think we're set. It's okay, we're ready to go into it. So, oh, wait a minute, did I mess that? Sorry, move to room 1. So you're gonna be recording room 2 and facilitating, right, Carolina?
Okay.
Okay, great. So here we go. So I just opened the rooms. See you there. When is unassigned, Kevin? Oh. Hey, everyone. Oh, I messed up. Oh no. I kind of put the wrong people in, so okay. But anyway, I'll facilitate. What the heck? There's not that much to facilitation. So so we're gonna have 5-minute turns, and let me get this. Do you want to, Martha, take time? Does that work, or? Okay, we got time. So yeah, you can start with speaking if someone wants to speak to me, and I can just model the listening, and then we can just go around. The topic is, what's your vision for XR 2020, or whatever is alive for you?
Well, I can probably go first.
Okay. I'm listening.
I'm in there. Yes. Oh, it's really interesting to be having a go at this form. I followed Rupert Reed particularly over the last months, and been impressed by what he's offering, what he's been offering. And I've been particularly struck by, which I think is included in this pamphlet, is a call to XR to concentrate more on building the movement as a sort of a way to, if we're really depending on getting this enormous number of people on the streets, we need to build our movement almost first, or alongside. Is that enough for now?
Yeah, that's it. So what I'm hearing is that you've been impressed with Rupert Reed and you've been following his work. And your take on the paper is that it's saying to really put some focus on developing the movement, or the movement along with the action component, is how you're interpreting it.
Yes, I'm sure there's other stuff in there as well, but that particularly chimes with my own experience since April of encountering people who were very supportive and enthusiastic even about XR, but wondering what they can do, and perhaps not feeling like they're in a position to go to London and in the UK's place, and doing direct action. So I really like the idea of almost like acknowledging and validating where they're at and what they're able to do, and almost bringing that into the movement and coordinating it across the country.
So you're seeing that there's a lot of people not really sure how to engage and know what to do. So you would like to spend more time sort of engaging with them and sort of coordinating that across the country, sort of the movement building aspect. I'm not sure if I quite got that, but.
Right, yeah, that's along the lines, but it feels a bit pressured, this, because I've had a long day of XR work and I'm a bit tired. I thought this webinar was going to be in the morning in the UK, and I got the times wrong.
Okay, I'm feeling, let me reflect that. You're feeling a little pressured because you've been working all day on XR stuff, and you thought, hey, this was going to be in the morning, but now it's later at night, and you're just feeling a bit pressured, maybe kind of struggling for things to say.
Yeah, in that mode, perhaps I'll think I'll finish there for now, actually.
Okay, you can just say, I feel fully heard, or something like that, or I'll finish there, that your turn is over. So you don't have to take the full 5 minutes,
No, right, I feel heard and understood, thank you.
Okay,
so what happens now?
Then it's my turn to select who to speak to, and I'll speak to James.
Go for it.
Yeah. So it was Martha and I did the empathy circle with the two co-founders and the authors of this paper. And I had hoped that they would be more supportive of these cafes, with one of the people, Skeena. She's part of her project, her work, is the vision. And I thought they would work more with us in doing a series of these cafes, but I haven't heard from her since our empathy circle. So I'd hoped that there'd be sort of more support for this dialogue going forward.
You did a meeting, an empathy circle with the two XR founders and the authors of this document, thinking that they would be supportive of a series of cafes related to it, but you haven't heard from them.
Yeah, they were very supportive. Skeena was saying that this would be a really good step to do, and we could use the empathy circles for having this dialogue. But and I know people are really busy, and and they need a bit of a break, so I understand that. But I was hoping it could be more integrated into the XR as an ongoing sort of empathy cafe to talk about the vision. So maybe a little, I don't know if, I think there would have been, things would have moved along better if we had been able to coordinate more.
You understand that people are busy, but you also think it would have been more helpful if there was more assistance from them in integrating and coordinating some further dialogue.
Yeah. With that being said, though, I think this is a good amount. Just, 2 cafes is kind of 2 circles is a good amount because it becomes a lot of logistics if we have a really large group. So, it's good for that aspect. So.
You're also appreciating what we have. The amount of people that have shown up is sufficient for some discussion and for the infrastructure that we can accommodate in terms of what is the logistics required for accommodating people.
Yeah, exactly. And in terms of the vision, the vision that I see for XR is really to incorporate more of this empathy aspect work into XR. I was thinking this morning, maybe the topic should have been, how might we incorporate the empathy circle process into XR? Really get to the point. Let's start work. I love that. It's like, let's just get to the point. How do we get empathy circles so that everyone in XR can take part in an empathy circle, can facilitate an empathy circle, and can also facilitate an empathy cafe? Just let's start thinking about that and making it a real effort to incorporate it.
You have a desire to reach everyone in the Extinction Rebellion movement, so that everyone has access to an empathy circle and everyone has access to training to lead an empathy circle.
And then once we have that, we do our actions sort of based on empathy. So I'm envisioning we set up sort of a XR event in Berkeley. We sort of occupy the town square, and we demand that well, first we offer listening to passerbyers. Whoever comes by, XR listens, come, we are here to listen. And everybody has experience in listening, right? We know how to listen. And so that's the first part. And then we have the demand that we want the city council and the mayor to do empathy circles with us on the topic of climate change, climate crisis, and how do we bridge divides within society.
So your next steps that you would like people to pursue are to, after people have understanding and experience with empathy circle process, where you want to do direct actions, occupy Berkeley Town Square, invite or demand local politicians to participate in empathy circles in person, and make a loud statement to just people, passerbys, people on the street, that XR listens, and introduce them to the process.
Yeah, and that XR actually does listen. There's we have rows of, that's my time. There's a row of chairs and a chair across, and we're here, come sit down, we're gonna listen to you about your concerns.
You have an idea for the format with the chairs, and it's a spectacle, or it's a public, it's visual, that people can see the process taking place.
I feel fully heard. Yeah, thanks.
All right. Sky, would you listen to me?
For sure. Go for it.
Okay. Just start my timer. I feel frustrated. Well, yeah. So I'm noticing the fork in the road that I'm at, which is that do I want to join what Edwin is saying, or do I want to bring in some of my frustration? And I'm going to try to join what Edwin is saying. So I love the vision that Edwin lays out, and I also love the enthusiasm. I share many of the goals, I think, of that Edwin is expressing. I was on a call with someone last night who was being invited into a certain role for an XR group where they would take on a role that was called confidant. And it was the request was kind of like, we have an XR group, there's all this kind of conflict, there's all this kind of stuff that happens, and we would love to have a neutral party who is available to offer empathy and support. And I was talking to this person, and I kind of, said, it's like a superhero role. It's kind of like they are gonna have all these problems, and they're just gonna mail them to you and hope that you solve them all. And it's a great request, but we kind of both laughed at how, in a sense, it's both beautiful vision and also a totally impossible task.
You might give a minute to reflect.
Yes,
that's quite
thanks.
a bit. You can also ask for, please pause, so I can reflect, just to give you a heads up.
Go ahead, Sky.
Thank you. Okay. So you feel a bit of frustration, but you want to put that aside for now to discuss, to reflect on the different goals that you aligned on with Edwin. And so you really enjoy the vision and the enthusiasm that he shared with us. And now you also feel like, regarding the situation that you faced yesterday, I think, concerning a war of a neutral party inside the XR group, you feel like this task is something amazing, beautiful, and kind of problem solving, but at the same time kind of impossible to do. So yeah, this is my reflection on what you said.
Yes, thank you. My response to that request, in theory, is the creation of more group circles, so that people are working on their issues together rather than getting saved by one person. So that I think that what the skills and ideas that we have in the culture of empathy community could really help with those circles. So it's clear to me that groups, individual XR groups want it, and it's just a matter of making the next step to providing the infrastructure and invitation for more people.
So you really want to empathize that you want more of kind of a collective intelligence, meaning like helping each other out more than putting all the weight of solving all those problems on one person. And you feel like having this empathy circle would be a great place to start with, and you are now thinking of what could be the next step to make that happen. Did I get that?
Yes, you got me. Thank you. That's my time.
Okay, Marta, would you like to reflect?
Yeah, go ahead, Sky.
Thank you. So I don't have a timer, but I'm gonna try to keep track.
I've got it here. Don't worry, I'll do that for you.
Thank you. So yeah, really reflect a lot on what you all three said earlier. And Edwin, we had an action on Friday, and I want to mention that also because I organize a region tent. So this is coming from France. This is what we do. We had like a specific area where people, could be heard by someone that is a professional. It's his job. It's her job to listen, and it's like people were a bit confused, but at the same time they tried it out. So I think regarding next steps, that could be, a next step to consider, James, or, like in the future during action to implement that during action.
So you're reflecting on what the three of them said before, and you are thinking about, you're saying about how you had an action on Friday, and there was a tent where people could go to, and there was someone who's actually professional at it, and they'd be offering listening to people, and that was a bit odd in certain ways, but clearly people liked it, and so you're suggesting that as a step to have that actions.
Yeah, and I guess I feel a bit of like frustration too. So because of two things. The first one is like the vision of 2020. It takes me, like I spent, I think, 3 hours now reading it, and I still didn't grasp fully because of the English. And it's really interesting that they want to open it, like to touch non-environmental and maybe not white middle-class people. But maybe we could start by rephrasing and like make that more accessible. I'm an academic and it's still art for me.
So yeah, so you're a bit frustrated. You spent 3 hours going around this document, and it's in a language that isn't really that easy. I mean, there's of course the thing of it being English, but it's also that even though you're academic, you're still struggling, and you think that it needs to be better efforts in breaking it down for people.
Yeah, and the second thing is about Edwin's idea on having a region, empathy circle going on in an action in Berkeley. And I guess I would love to connect more because we are talking with North California about taking over the capital in Sacramento, and doing that, occupying for 5 days to push the government to act during the G7. So yeah, I guess like my vision personally is about connecting in the US, because I feel that in France and I don't feel it here, where we like help each other out and support each other and do and have the same vision for the future.
So yeah, so you're saying you want to be in touch with Edwin because you're excited about what he was talking about, but also you've got this experience in France where people are connected across the country, and in the US not quite that yet. And you're particularly thinking about coming, there's going to be the G7, and in North California where you are, you're thinking of taking it for 5 days, and you'd really like this to be a component of it, just having empathy on the streets.
Yeah. The last part is I really align with the vision described by Skeena, Mark, and Rupert. I think we need to think about how we can bring non-environmental white middle class people with us, and I'm not sure yet how to, like they mentioned, either by maybe creating another movement or maybe creating another story and another framing.
So you're thinking about the thing they said specifically about increasing the diversity of the movement, and you're not sure how to go about doing that. But one thing, can you repeat? Sorry, because you said how they suggested.
Yeah. That's quite long. Sorry. Yeah, we could either create a specific movement or something else than XR, or we could reframe and change slightly the story of XR itself.
Mm-hmm. So either create a new movement that would integrate that, or slightly change the story of XR so it'd be inclusive of those groups.
Thank you. I feel fully heard.
Thank you. Edwin, will you listen to me, please?
Listening.
Yeah, I agree. It's a beautiful document, but it's very wishy-washy. Like, not in practice, but there's something about the language. I don't think it's the content of it. I think it's the language of it. And I wish there was a diagram. Like, they've got this one image, but my brain thinks in images, and it's 30 pages. And I think you could summarize these 30 pages in one nice image and get it done with, because, yeah.
You just feel that the paper is sort of wishy-washy. It's kind of hard to comprehend, and if they could have just made it more accessible, maybe having just an image would have made it more accessible. Just like one page image might have covered, really helped.
Yeah. A diagram, I think.
Oh, a diagram.
Yeah,
kind of a
because
diagram.
they have one. They have that one based on the Joanna Macy thing, but I think the whole thing could be summarized in a diagram. And I mean, wishy-washy in terms of vocabulary. I think the content is there, and it's got some very clear messages, but I had to annotate the thing to actually get the juice out of it. And yeah, but after getting the juice out of it, there was some very important messages that I was very pleased with.
Mm-hmm. So you had to really work through the document to kind of get to the core, the juice of it. And when you got it, you just found that there was some, sort of important ideas there.
Yeah. And it's a nice vision, but in terms of the diversity, for example, they offer some practical solutions. They say we can support the movements that are already there doing their work. So it can be a movement of movements rather than XR having to be the self-contained thing. It can be a facilitator of movements. And the other thing is that it would also, let's say there's a natural disaster or there's something, or the inequality, that you just work with the problems in the system. So it doesn't need to be XR for XR, but if you identify an issue with inequality, whether that's wages, whether that's something else, it doesn't need to be climate related, because it's all feeding into the same problem.
So you're seeing two parts. One is that to address problems that are not necessarily climate related problems, and sort of address those. And the other is not for just to be all XR, but XR is more of a facilitating, bringing groups together and sort of facilitating a movement of movements or groups like that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like stepping back and sort of, creating this movement of movements is the way forward.
That if there is a flood somewhere, then we can just, use the resources that we already have in community organizing, the structures that we have, and go and help in that flood. That we don't need to, yeah, we can actually step, and that's the whole thing. So I think for me, the word that I was very happy was there of the whole document is embody, 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 embody the change. You know, physically embody the change, physically embody regenerative culture, physically, they say it in a tiny bit, but physically walk towards conflict. You know, there's a tiny line there about that, but at least it's there. So, you know, physically actually embodying the things that we say we want to do in theory, be a bit braver and actually do it rather than just talking about it.
Yeah, so instead of just talking about this change, it's like actually model it and embody it. And you heard that the word embody was repeated multiple times. So it sounds like that sort of resonates with you, the embodiment part of it. Just model it how you want it.
Thank you, Edwin. I feel very heard.
Okay. I'll speak to Ben. You.
Hello.
Yeah, so I like that part about the embodiment. For me, I think the piece that I'm really working on is the empathy part of the embodiment. Is that we need to, whatever kind of happens, you got to get people talking to each other and being able to relate effectively to each other. And for me, the core of that is empathy.
So you really respond to the empathy part of embodiment, and whatever happens, you see it as really core that we get people talking to each other.
Yeah, so there's in the US, there's XR US, and a new group has just started, XR America, in sort of response to XR US, because they're saying XR US is more of a hard left social justice group, and they want, you know, a different approach, more of an inclusive approach. So there's already this conflict kind of sort of happening in the US. So.
All right, so you're aware that in the US another group has formed, perhaps in response to seeing XR US as a bit of a hard left, and XR America embodying more an inclusive attitude.
At least that's what they say. They're only now getting started, and Roger Hallam is trying to support them too, the new group. And his approach is more, well, let multiple approaches flourish and then see which ones succeed, you know. So that's sort of his strategy. It's not like one or the other is bad or good. It's just see what sort of works. So, but I was in a meeting last night with the XRSF, and, you know, this came up, and there was people, you know, sort of getting quite angry about this new group, and, you know, what can we do to undermine them? At least one person. So, and I said, well, there's the Empathy Circle work group. We're here to create dialogue between all the sides. We have facilitators, and you're all here now, skilled facilitators. We can help.
Yeah. So you're aware that Roger Hallam is supporting this new group in a way of saying a multitude of approaches, and the good ones will survive. But there's a real pushback, maybe in XR US, about how we undermine this new group. They're not good for us, and you putting forward empathy circles as a possible solution.
Yeah, so I think that if the empathy is at the core, it's like, okay, we're going to sit down, we're going to talk it out in the empathy circle. Everyone sort of sees this as a core practice. If a conflict starts, you know, we say, okay, we're going to talk it out, bring up whatever you are, bring out your frustrations, everything's welcome. There's no political correctness, say what you want, and you'll be heard in an empathy circle.
Right, so yeah, you really see the empathy circle. You'd like to see it as a core practice, a way of how we deal with conflict and difference, a place where people can really bring out their strong views about things and have them resolved.
Yeah, and all those views are welcome. You know, but we need a way of sort of negotiating those. And the empathy circle I see over and over again when people just hear each other, you know, express what they want to express, they get heard by the other side and it goes back and forth. It might take 4 or 5 hours, but, you know, eventually things kind of work their way out. And it really helps if we get practice in the empathy before the conflict starts. So from the get-go, you get familiar with this process. And then when the conflict comes, so you've got some tools in place to work them out.
Yeah, so you see that yes, it's a very useful tool, particularly and then the importance of people having it as a skill that they've developed before conflict arises, so that if conflict does arise, they're well equipped at that point to use the tool to resolve conflict. Is that right?
Yeah, and it also supports what James was hearing, that people just need personal support, you know. So if in the empathy circle is good, just, you know, empathic listening is just very helpful for just support about whatever stresses, anxieties, alienation, fear, you know, whatever, this depression, just getting heard by other people is very supportive. So it's not just the conflict, but there's just for this emotional support. It's helpful.
Oh, right, yeah. So you acknowledging that it's useful beyond just dealing with conflict. That it's just a good thing for members of the XR to be able to express themselves and be heard. That's building relationship, building connection between them, and a good thing for the movement.
Yeah, so just having the empathic listening be a core practice, that, oh, you join XR, you get an orientation, you know, you learn about the values, and, oh, let's everyone practice empathy skills, you know, before we sort of move on. So I think it would just be a helpful practice to integrate, you know, from the get-go.
Yeah, so you'd like to see empathic listening embraced as a core practice of XR, and where people are welcome to XR. Let's explain that that's really something that we do, and inviting them to take that on board as a fundamental to membership.
Yeah, I feel fully heard. Thanks.
Thank you, Edwin. James, speak to James.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm enjoying this, and thank you. I think it was Marta for reminding me of a bit of what's in the paper. I read it some time ago, so it's good to have that. Yeah, I too think we should do things like respond to events like the floods, be a facilitator of a movement of movements. And another thing that Rupert, I think, has expounded elsewhere is that we really flesh out the 3 demands and contextualize them for people, link them to their everyday concerns. Do you want to come in, James? Yeah.
Sure. You're really enjoying the process, and I'm sorry, I might need help with this, but there was something in the document about 3 concerns or 3 issues that you want to see linked together.
XR's 3 demands, to contextualize them. So really to flesh them out for people. How can I put it?
Yeah, so 3 demands. You want to, the XR has 3 demands, and you want to contextualize them and flesh out or clarify them for people to more easily digest.
Yes, yeah, I'd agree. Yeah. Let's say. Yeah, I'm a little alarmed at XR US and forming, well, XR America now. It does sound to me like a bit divisive. And my experience of XR is that its internal democracy needs a great deal of attention. In the paper, Rupert talks about XR needs to take a long look at itself, and I'm fully in agreement of that. I mean, one of its principles of values is reflect and learn, and for me, we have not reflected and learned, particularly from the October Rebellion. It was not nearly as successful as the April one, and we really haven't debated the learning from that.
Hearing that America has created is on the verge of creating two organizations is concerning for you. It does sound divisive, and you are reflecting on the principle within XR to reflect and learn, and the great importance of the internal democratic infrastructure to XR and how important it is, and your sense is that that XR has not reflected and learned much, discussed much of the October Rebellion, and that it wasn't as effective as the April Rebellion.
Yeah, thank you. I feel fully heard.
All right. Marta, would you listen to me? No, excuse me. I'm going to speak to everyone. I'm going to break with process a little bit and speak.
I could ask you not to break with the process, so we stay within the process.
Sure. Okay. No. Marta.
Yes, go for it.
Just going to give a warning to everybody that I'm going to be bringing in a difference, both intellectually and emotionally. Don't, not yet. I'm not ready. How are you going to walk towards conflict? How are we going to walk towards conflict when people come in with differences that are intense? People who are angry and don't want to follow this process, who find this demand to follow the process offensive, who are not going to stay in a box, who are going to be angry, and who are not going to stay when you tell them what to do. What are we going to do? Are we going to silence them? Are we going to mute them? Are we going to not allow them to come back? Or are we going to actually, you talked about embodiment. Are we actually going to embody listening to people who are different from us? Because I don't believe that Edwin is there. I want him and I want us to be there so badly, but I am censoring myself because I don't want to get kicked out, but I also don't want to do bullshit.
Marta, do you want to reflect on that?
If James is ready. Would you like me to reflect that much, James?
No. I have a lot of intensity, and I don't want to direct it at you, Marta, because it's not about you. But Edwin is asking me to direct all of my energy right now towards you. I will break you. I will destroy you. I am angry, and it's not about you. And I have a fear of alienating people because I am really good at alienating people. I have been attacked a lot, and I have shit. And I spent the weekend with people who talk about inclusion, they talk about conflict, and then when I bring in my frustration with the group, they told me to leave and they deleted my Facebook fucking posts. They're full of shit, and I'm tired of dealing with people who are talking and full of shit. I've been participating in these empathy groups now with Edwin for, I don't know, let's say a month or two. I was here emotionally then. This is not a sudden thing for me. I have to be really careful about where I can bring the fullness of my frustration because I've been removed from every group that I bring it to, even though I'm being invited to bring it. And I want to know, am I really being invited to bring the conflict and the frustration I have and the emotional intensity? Or is it just a fucking bullshit invitation to get pulled in and then punched down and deleted? That's my 5 minutes. I'm done.
Okay. So, I hear you're very angry, and I hear you feel it's time to express that anger because you've been tiptoeing around and you're self-censoring because you see this pattern where you walk into groups that supposedly wish you to be authentic and be present and come with your emotion and whatever that is. And then when rubber hits the road, actually, it's not quite like that. And you're frustrated that you weren't allowed to break the process because it's not about me, and you don't want to be directing that at me. And you really question, how is it that all these groups say they want to do something and then they fall short of it? Are they lying? And you're frustrated with that. And what I also heard you say was that you wish it was possible, that you have the vision where groups would be authentic and groups would be honest in their way of doing this, and they'd actually embody, and you have the hope that that's possible, and you question, actually, is that what's happening here? And so you've been coming for a month and a half now to Edwin circles, and you're wondering, is it just going to repeat itself? And is he, is there a thing where you come here and you actually, are yourself, and then you get kicked out?
Yes, thank you. I feel heard.
Right. Sky?
Yeah.
Me, please?
Go for it.
Yeah. I really feel James. I don't, suppose I don't usually scream, but it's very easy to get frustrated at people that claim to be authentic, and then they mean it. They want to be authentic, right? I'm not saying people are, most often people want to, but it's quite a big ask. It's not easy. Being open and vulnerable, which is, one of the big words as well in this document. It doesn't come easy, getting angry and crying publicly doesn't come easy, and most people just aren't ready for that.
Yeah, so you really feel what James mentioned, and you empathize the fact that going in a group and kind of showing your vulnerability and your true emotions, your full you, not censoring, not putting a threshold on what you feel and what you think and what you want to do is really difficult. It's really something that is really hard to do. Like what's that?
Yeah, and most people just aren't there. Unfortunately, I think I suppose also there's a lot of people that have had a past life, a childhood, a present life, an environment around them before and now that has not allowed them to be themselves. So, it's on one hand, I'm very judgmental of people that are inauthentic. On the other hand, I need to acknowledge that not everyone has had the privilege of being allowed to be authentic.
Yeah, so not everyone is there, and the main reason you want to tackle is the fact that to be fully authentic, you need a specific privileged environment to actually have been surrounded by people that can accept you and who you are. And most people have grown up in an environment where we need to be put in boxes, sort of, and we cannot fully be us. We need to demand ourselves in some ways.
And also one of the reasons I don't get angry often is because I'm privileged, that's one thing. And the other thing is I've done a lot of work around my triggers. So what makes me snap? And again, not everyone has had, and I'm at the beginning of that journey, but not everyone has had that. And for me, the way in which James expressed himself is totally fine. I didn't feel, and I know I heard what he said in terms of and this is nothing, and and I accept his word for it. But what I worry about is how are we going to stay nonviolent in the future, come what may, if we can't, take shouting, if we can't. But there's shouting and there's disrespect, and I didn't feel disrespected by James. There's a difference there,
So you acknowledge the fact that you have had the chance to work on your triggers that makes you a person that doesn't tend to be angry, and the reaction that James, the way James expressed himself through angerness and dispassion is not something that affects you because you felt still respected. You know that what he has said was really respectful, and you just wonder now how to keep being authentic and not going to violence when you have this anger in you.
I'll just correct. It was a separate idea that the non-violence. It wasn't as much to do with the conversation before. It's just me wondering how is XR going to stay non-violent in the future.
Okay. Thank you for calling.
Thank you.
Marta, would you? Well, no, I guess I should move. Sorry.
It's your choice. You can choose whoever you want. So.
Okay. Well, Edwin, yeah. How about
Okay.
you?
Listening.
So I really feel James. I felt, and I'm gonna be emotional. So James react with anger, and I react with crying. So this is my way.
So you're just letting us know you're going to be emotional, and James responds with anger, and you're just saying that you respond with crying.
Yeah.
Just...
It has been hard for me to be in XRUS, to be honest. I've been fully accepted and entrusted in France. I have never been questioned or judged, meaning nobody had to trust me by judging my output or who I am or what I think. They just trusted me. And here, it has been 6 months, and I had to prove so much my value and that I worth it to be heard, to change things, that I almost left 4 times now because I'm not like James. I have the chance to have my French people behind me that help me. But I really feel what James mentioned.
So you really feel what James mentioned, and you're saying that in France, people just accepted you. You didn't have to prove yourself. And in XR, here in the United States, where you're having to prove yourself, and you're just feeling, sounds like you feel judged, and almost 4 times you just, the pain of that, you just felt like leaving. And
yeah,
just feeling a lot of sadness and pain, sounds like, around that judgment.
Yeah, and I have my trigger too, meaning that I know now that it came from my childhood. I worked with a psychologist, that. I worked with a conflict resolution with all the people individually that were triggering me and that, were really not listening to me because my ideas and my thoughts were too challenging, and they would judge me because I'm French and young, and so I don't know because I'm not from here.
Mm-hmm. So you're being judged. You're not sure why you're being judged. Is it because you're young? Is it because you're French? And you just don't even know why there's this sense of judgment towards you.
Yeah, so I really, it took me a while, and now they started finally to give me room, although it's always back and forth. So it's like, now I'm gonna propose this restructuration in the chapter, and there are already some people coming at me and being like, oh, we want to do it with you, blah, blah, blah. And I have to push them back, to push them away, to tell them to give me room, because I am in charge of the art group here, and there are a lot of LGBTQA+ people and young people, and it's not the majority of the chapter, and they feel really unsafe. So now I feel like I need to push my ideas to make room for those people that have strong, deep, full personality that cannot be expressed because it doesn't match the boxes of the person that created this chapter here.
So you're in the art group. There's a lot young and LGBT people there. And you're finding that the people who kind of created the XR group are sort of coming in and say, oh, yeah, we can kind of work with you, but bring in their energy, and you're wanting to protect your group, sort of the energy there. And so you're having to sort of push back. And
yeah, so I I feel it's a shame what the US has done to some people, to delete their account and tell them to shut the fuck up and go out of XR, because what overreaction would they have expected them to have then build another XR? XR is for everyone that agrees to the principles. So I really align with both James and Edwin on that, the fact that we need to move towards accepting and embodying our principle to accept fully people, and also, yeah, just opening discussion to talk with XR America.
So you're really seeing that of being accepting, kind of really holding the values at XR. So anyone who's in XR one can join if they support the values. And so you're wanting to support dialogue and a quality of acceptance within XR.
Thank you, Felicia.
Then I'll speak to Ben.
Right.
Yeah, so, James had asked about opening it up to change the structure. And so I had insisted on, we follow the structure. So that's one thing for me, is this basic structure to hold the space. So I guess I'm just sort of insisting on the foundational structure that we all agreed on to take part.
So you heard that James wanted to change the structure, but you were aware you wanted to keep to the strengths of the structure, really, to hold the space.
Yeah, exactly. Because I know that if we have this structure, well, one part is if you start breaking the structure, then it just turns into sort of a free-for-all, right, is my experience. Because then the basic agreements of sort of fairness, if everyone gets their 5 minutes, can fall apart pretty quickly. And so that's just something to sort of create this foundational container, that can hold whatever comes up. So.
Yeah, so you're aware that if you let the structure go, it just becomes a danger. It becomes a free-for-all, and the fairness of the 5-minute structure is broken, and this foundational container is not created.
Yeah, and so within that, anything can come up. Whatever James was doing, I thought was great. I'm totally supportive of James and, whatever anger he wants to direct, and it's part of the 5 minutes. This isn't a politically leftist group where there's political, speech. I'm totally into the free speech and free attitude during your 5 minutes. And that's your 5 minutes to be heard the way you want to be heard, to your satisfaction. Are you feeling heard to your satisfaction?
Right, yeah, so whatever comes up is acceptable, and it's really for you. It doesn't stipulate that you hold any particular opinions. It's really a place for free speech, and be a container for that.
Yeah, and I also see it as sort of training wheels. This is a good practice. As we do this, we develop resilience for the difficult environments where there is no kind of structure like that, the total chaos that you can just find out in the streets. So I just see this as sort of a training wheels practice space. And with time, you do it enough, a couple of years, you kind of slowly build up to the more difficult situations. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So you see this place as a place to practice. To know what those type of wheels are called, training wheels for your trike, aren't they? For your bike.
Exactly.
But, it's a held, safe environment for when, because out there isn't that structure.
Yeah.
So this is a support in this place.
Yeah, and there is a certain resilience that comes here, because when I set up the empathy tent, I mean, all kinds of hell breaks loose out there. I mean, there's people who are like straight from the insane asylum, and they are just going all over the place. I mean, you're talking about street people who have serious, and it's hard, you know. I mean, it's like James is like a like a little baby compared to because some of these people. I mean, it's just raw, crazy emotions. There's no structure to hold it. You know, it's just like, oh my God, what have I gotten myself into?
All right. So, yeah, well, you set up an empathy tent in the street. This is nothing to that. All kinds of hell breaks loose, and yeah, street people and people from the insane asylum, and yeah. So you wonder sometimes what you've let yourself into.
I don't really, it's just, I'm just saying that this is a preparation for that. We're not trying to jump right into the deep end. You know, having this structure is, you know, it's the training wheels for, you know, jumping into the deep end. So, yeah.
Yeah, right. So this is a place to, yeah. So yeah, you're right. So it's, yeah, it's.
This is training wheels. This is the easy. We're just practicing.
Yeah.
We have a very good, you know, container. If we stay with it, we just keep practicing, and then, you know, you can go out into the streets and, you know, go into the deep end.
Yeah. So you can tackle the hard stuff out in the rest of the world, but here it's a chance to practice in a held environment.
Right. And then when you have your anger and they stab you in the guts, so yeah, then good luck.
Yeah. So yeah. So when difficult things happen, you're going to be more prepared.
Yeah, and you'll get stabbed too with that anger when you're dealing with those people, because they got knives, they got guns here in America.
Oh God, that doesn't sound so good. I mustn't comment, must I? Right, yeah. So you can get stabbed and hurt, and it's serious stuff.
Yeah, I feel heard.
Okay, thank you. I want to speak to one of the ladies, so I want to speak to Martha. That's okay.
Yeah, Ben.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, how can XR stay non-violent in the future? That's interesting, isn't it? Because yeah, XR does seem to offer at least an attempt to deal with our inner world as well as and see it. Part of changing the outer world, the outside world, is to change how we are inside. So it's one of the things I like about XR, in that at least it's trying to make room for that and welcome all of us, all parts of ourselves, to activism, not just joy or anger, which are usually the two things historically which have been embraced by activism.
Yeah, so you're going back to the how to stay nonviolent, the XR's movement, and you're saying how one of the things that you enjoy about XR is that it allows for people to bring all parts of themselves. That traditionally in activism, it would, you know, the two acceptable ways would have been joy and anger, but with XR, it's whatever is up for you.
Yeah, yeah, okay, yeah. I'm just noticing I'm just relaxing more into this process, and wondering I'm wondering where it might go. I love the idea of XR listens and having a load of chairs out in the street and offering listening to people. We actually did that a couple of years ago after the Brexit decision, trying to get people who'd voted on opposite sides to sit down with each other and talk. And we felt the power. I felt the power of just listening to people. We listened to people who'd voted differently, and you could just feel them calm down over about 15 minutes as they talked. And although, you know, they didn't persuade me of their position, I didn't persuade them of mine, we were able to meet as human beings at the end of that 15 minutes more than we had at the beginning. And that's got to be worth something.
So you're relaxing into the process. And as you relax, you're sort of wondering, where is this going to end up? Where is it going to take me? And you were thinking about a couple of years ago that you had the experience after Brexit of doing listening to the different side of the vote, and how you felt that after 15 minutes actually was quite a good experience because people would actually listen to each other, and that was different.
Yeah, and I've studied, I think the LGBT community did an experiment where they knocked on people's doors and literally just listened to people for 20 minutes without any trying to persuade them of any position at all. It was almost, and it was remarkably successful. People changed their viewpoint through their own, just through talking about it. It's almost they were allowed in that process to examine their own thoughts and make their own conclusions, which were often then more sympathetic with LGBT people, just through that. And the person visiting them hadn't had to persuade them of anything whatsoever. And I just think there's surely a lesson there for XR, and maybe having a conversation about the climate.
So you're saying that it would be good to use this method in XR that you've heard of, where there was LGBTQ people that went out door knocking, and they just went out and they knocked and they just listened to people for 20 minutes, really not intervening at all, and let people, by just talking and talking, to sort it out themselves into more reasonable positions. And you're thinking that's a good model. It's surprises you, and it's a good model, and you think it might find a place in XR and environmental movements.
Yes, I feel I'm actually holding a workshop next week, I think, on having climate conversations. And I notice in myself how emotional I get when I'm talking to people about it. And I sometimes think, oh God, that must be a real turn off to people, because I'm sort of getting a bit shrieky, a bit. And I really like to.
That was the time too. You might not see it. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, right. I'd like to find a way of not doing that.
So you're thinking about a workshop that you're going to be doing soon, and talking to people, and that moves your energy around. Thinking about that and doing it. And do you want to just say the last bit?
It was just that I often get too passionate, and I think that turns people off. I'd like to not do that.
So you want to hold off a bit to not be too expressive in the way you do.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. I feel heard.
James, who is it? Yeah, today I'm not very good with timekeeping. As I said, I'm half distracted in my brain. So where do I want to go? I really, yeah, it's this thing of feeling inspired by the document and by what XR could be. And at the same time being really I wish we could pull it off, but I don't. It would take a lot of growing up from people, and I don't know that people are ready to grow up.
You said expired. You feeling expired by the document?
Inspired.
Inspired. Thank you. So yeah, inspired by the document. You want you would love for us to be able to pull it off, but you see that you think that it would require a lot of growing up that you're not sure people want to do.
Yeah. It would take solving this XR problem. Basically, it's like first we need to solve all the other problems of the world. You know, we need to address conflict avoidance, we need to address patriarchy, we need to address inequality, we need to address you know, the accumulation of power and money by a few.
So the movement has set itself up to solve all the problems of the world, including avoidance of conflict, patriarchy, wealth inequality, and so on, that you're laughing about what the task, that how big, maybe impossible the task seems.
And this is not an XR problem. This, you know, like it could be a different movement, it could have a different name, it could be many movements. We won't survive, not, you know, me or us as individuals, but collectively, we won't like do what needs to be done in terms of climate action unless we grow up. And growing up means facing the inequalities. You know, it means actually reevaluating what does it mean to be a man and a woman in the different cultures, not just in the West, but, you know, in the different cultures. And what does it mean to have a job? Like, what's that for? Why do we need to be up in pairs and have children? And that's the objective in life. Like, we pair up and we have babies and we have a job and one day we retire. Like, we need to reevaluate everything. And are people ready for that?
You're saying we won't survive all of us will not survive without a deep and serious reevaluation of all of our roles and assumptions and the things that many people are currently engaged in without thinking about why we do these things and if we need to do them.
Yeah, and we have, you know, and the task is huge and the amount of time we have is tiny. And so, yeah, it makes me want to laugh. Like, in a way, it's like a science fiction film that we're in. But it's good to be alive. You know, it's like, yeah.
It makes you laugh because it makes you think it's like a science fiction film. The task, the challenge of the task compared to the amount of time, and you're noticing that it feels good to be alive anyway, in that, with that, facing that task.
Thank you, James.
Sky, would you please listen to me?
For sure. Go ahead.
So you specifically spoke about the difference between connecting with people in the US and France. And I really feel that, even though I'm not French, I see what's happening in France and I say, we're so behind, and I hate being an American. You know, my friend often writes on Facebook, we really need the yellow vests. Like we really need to make that transition. And I look around at the activists who are at the top of activism where I live, and I have so much despair. The people, there's 10 activists who live next door to me, and they've been avoiding conflict with me for the last 2 years. I came to their dinner 2 nights ago and I said, I am frustrated that you guys are avoiding me. And they said, we didn't give you permission to talk about this. And I think to myself, we're doomed. You can't, there's a group of people who call themselves activists who can't even talk to other activists, and we're gonna take on billion-dollar corporate interests, and we have to like unite and trust each other, and you can't even talk to me because you think that I'm making you uncomfortable. You fucking morons, you fucking cowards, you fucking fake assholes. I stay up at night wanting to go there and just go to, they're right next door. I want to scream, hello, right? But I'm like, I'm not an idiot. I mean, they're just going to call the police on me. These activists, they're going to call the police on me if I try to force them to talk to me. And these are people who are creating workshops on restorative justice. They did a workshop on restorative circles. These people, they can't talk to me, but they're teaching other people how to be restorative. Total bullshit. It's just frightens me, the level of hypocrisy. And so yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm right there with what Marta was saying just before. And yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. Okay. You totally feel what I mentioned regarding the connection between people in the US compared to other countries like France. And it makes you feel like you're behind and you don't even want at some point to be American because it's frustrating. And you want more of the social movement with like the yellow jacket. And when you meet with your friends that are activists and they don't want to face the conflict that has arisen with you, but still they create workshop on how to mitigate conflicts and restorative cycle, you feel like it's a total hypocrisy. And you don't, you want to, it makes you want to scream, and it kind of gives you a sense of hopelessness, because how can you trust each other if you cannot even trust each other to create the next, system, if you cannot even talk to each other when you were friends in the past. Did I grasp that?
It makes me want to become a Nazi. I'll just be honest. When I try to talk to leftists and anarchists who won't talk to me, it makes me want to become a Nazi, because what kind of leftist won't talk to other leftists about what's going on? What does that even mean? What that's not the leftist that I want to be a part of. That's not a left that I want to be a part of.
Yeah, so when you are not heard by those people that are on the left side, and you consider yourself as a left side person, and those folks that are supposed to support you, they don't want to listen to you, you want to go on the opposite extreme direction, and being Nazi and do extreme measure to make them listen to you and change the world.
Yeah, I feel heard. Thank you.
Okay. Would Ben listen to me? Would you be okay with that?
Absolutely. Hello.
Hi. Yeah. I had a time where when I first joined XRUS here, so it was last officially, I would say, August. So I was since December in France, and I didn't know here they started the chapter in April, and so I joined them in August because I saw them putting poster, and I was like, "You guys are here, what?" Because there's no national platform, like we are not even on the national website because there's some issue with that. But when I joined, and we did right away an action, and I was part of the action, and it was not at all how I felt I could be heard. Like all my ideas were just shut down and everything, but I was new at the same time. I just felt like I became really depressed here, and it made me kind of have the similar ideas of James. So not going into Nazi, but I watched a lot Mr. Robot at the time, and I was like, oh.
With what, sorry?
Mr. Robot. It's a TV series show, and basically like this guy. Go for it.
Could I reflect?
Yeah.
So I'm not sure I picked up the timeline, but you were in France in December, but you came here in April and joined in August. But when you joined, you felt your ideas were shut down. You joined an action, but you became depressed, and not quite becoming a Nazi, but you identify with Mr. Robot, that sort of shut down, mechanical, unfeeling.
Yeah, so in this series, the main character is a nerd, and he just creates an electromagnetic bomb, and he make basically all the finance like shut down, like the data regarding money disappears, so the economics of the country disappear, so the country kind of go into sort of chaos, sort of. And so I had those extreme thoughts, like in one way, it's not about hurting people, but it's about, okay, nobody is really willing to do what it takes to change, then fine, I'm gonna do it myself, and I'm gonna make everything explode, and we're gonna start from scratch. You can reflect on that already.
Okay. Yeah, so the story is a nerd who says he's going to do everything himself because nobody's listening or nobody's affecting change. So he shuts down the finance system, creating great chaos. And is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I realized then that there is no way, there is no point for me to think like that. It's like, if I do that, we are doomed too. So it will not bring a solution, it's just gonna bring chaos. So going into extreme is not an option for me, because I see that it has been the case since hundreds of years, that everyone just went into this like, okay, they don't listen, fine, I'm gonna do everything myself, and I'm gonna take this country, I'm gonna kill this guy, and it leads nowhere. It just reinforces our hatred against each other.
So you realize that this is not the way forward. People have done this way for a long time, where they've just given up and then just destroyed things. This extreme way, which just means we're all doomed, and it's just not the way to go.
Yeah, so like I really do truly believe that human can change. I saw myself change in my moods and in my thoughts so much, like in the past, like it seems like forever since I was a teenager. They tell you are in a crisis, it's gonna pass, and then you realize that no, it's this world that is insane, and any sane person is gonna question this world forever, except if you want to just be blind. And it's okay too. If you can take it, you can blind yourself and not.
Yeah. So you really know that humans can change. When you were a teenager, you used to think that it was you, I think, but the world is kind of insane because of the craziness of the situation. Yeah.
So I would love for James to maybe, and reflecting on what Edwin said. Yeah. Sorry. May I finish this thought? Yeah. Just to like have a sort of support from us, because okay, it's cool, like we talk to each other in this empathy circle, but it would be great, like not only us, and I don't want to put that on Edwin, but maybe at the national level or something, or in IST, just to have like what happened when someone is kick off of like a chapter, and he is like, well, I agree with the principle, it's just because of some individuals. So for me, I'm lucky, and I found some support people inside my chapter, and like they are right now sending emails to advocate for me and my thoughts. But what would have happened if those 2 or 3 people were not there? Yeah, so I just wonder, in terms of solution, what can we provide to help James in the future?
So yeah, so you're wondering what can be the solution when these sorts of things do happen within groups. You're aware that you were lucky that you met a couple of people who were sort of batting on your side, but for people who don't encounter that, what are we going to do with an XR to make sure that they are, given a way through and a solution?
Thank you. Yeah, I feel fully heard.
Thank you.
So we're going to close the rooms and go back to the full group. So I'm just hitting the close. We have about 1 minute. So thanks everyone for this. And you can think about, we'll get about 2 minutes just to, report back. So if there's anything you want to say to the group, yeah.
Thank you, everyone. It was nice meeting you, Ben and Sky.
Yeah,
likewise.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you
It's
very
lovely.
much.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Really interesting.
Yeah, thanks for your outburst, James.
I do what I can.
It's hard work, but you do what you can.
It is hard work, but I bring my energy when I can.
Okay. The other should pop in any second. Oh, there he is. Hey, Bill.
Hey.
If you're recording, you could stop your circle.
Oh, Carolina is the.
Okay, it's only, these are two.
Not all of us are here.
Oh.
There is no Ben and no.
Oh, they still have 23 seconds for some reason. Okay. They'll be brought in a second. 17.
That's weird because we didn't have this time.
Yeah, it was, we were out of time on ours. Something weird happened.
And there is no Kevin. 3 people are lost somewhere in the internet connection.
Oh, there they are in the ethers.
Yeah, you just left us.
Yeah, it's strange.
Left
It was,
hanging. Little group of 3.
I didn't do anything. It happened automatically.
Yeah.
And there is still no Steven. We still don't have Steven.
He might have left.
Yeah, could have, because I think everybody's back. But okay, so what we want to do is just give everyone like 2 minutes just to report back. You know, how was the group? You can share what you liked, you know, any suggestions, or just to report back kind of the main kind of thoughts that came out of the group. Maybe Bill would just go through and call on people. Maybe, yeah.
Okay.
I think 2 minutes, I think. Report
2
back.
minutes.
Up to, you don't have to take the full time.
Okay, great. So I'll just go around my screen. Sky?
Go for it.
I'm sorry?
Oh, sorry. I didn't follow them. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
It sounds like she thought you were going to talk to her, Bill.
Oh no, you're just reporting back. Like, what was your experience of the circle, or anything you want to share? Any highlights?
Yeah, I think it was really, for me, it's my first empathy circle with XR. I've done others with other groups, and it was, I think it's really working. I feel like people have been heard, but not only that, it's like we all took a piece of what people told us and reflect on it, and yeah, I am really hopeful that, you know, this will lead to somewhere, which is kind of the complicated things, and we mentioned that a bit about what's the next step after an empathy circle. So Edwin reflected on how we can implement this empathy circle after an induction. And I would like to add, how do we, after an empathy circle, reflect on how we can feedback on that, how we can implement new things to improve ourselves and our chapter and our national, whatever. Check.
Okay. James?
Thank you. So I didn't expect to be screaming in the group, but I was. And I am really happy with the discussion that took place. It was it was about despair and the challenges, the gravity of the challenges, and what I was bringing that was really important to me was the importance of really strengthening our group and getting clear about what we're gonna do or what we want to do when if we're inviting in intensity, if we're really serious about that, because I don't want to invite in intensity and then say and then push people out, myself, of course, maybe primarily, but also for other people, because I know other people have a lot of intensity too. And so I just really, I'm glad we talked about that, and I felt like there was a lot of common ground in our group about that. Thanks. I'm done.
Thanks, James. Marta?
Yeah, it felt very short today.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason. We talked about how to remain nonviolent in the future. We talked about how before, like the task that we need to do in terms of climate action is just so huge. And if we want to stand any chance, then we do need to address all the other things before. The inequalities and patriarchy and it's almost like we need to solve all the world's problems to have any chance of solving the environmental problem. And so I feel a lot of humor around that, because in a way laughing about it is what keeps me sane, because it all sounds very much like a science fiction film. So we spoke of that, and that I really enjoyed that the document talks about embodying the change. And I've not actually experienced most people be willing to do that. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. Ben Stollery?
Hi. Yeah, that was fascinating. And with a bit of, we did seem to roam over a lot of different issues in my group. It was very rich. And I'm struck by this almost being an untypical XR experience, and that I'm hearing from a lot of rebels. And in my big meeting, all the emphasis is on doing, on preparing for these actions and things. And I really value, and I think it's so movement building to hear from each other. So I really like that. And there's something amazing about seeing all you guys from around the world. I mean, it is extraordinary. It gives me heart and hope, really. So thank you to Edwin and whoever is responsible for the format, because I think it's a real contribution. It's really simple to grasp, unlike the SOS system, which seems to be endlessly being trained. So yeah, some simplicity in XR, my God, is amazing. Fantastic. Thanks very much.
Sure, thank you, Ben. Carolina?
I don't really know what to say today, which doesn't happen very often to me, because I always have something to say. I'm a talkative person. I felt like our circle was a little bit distracted by many different issues today, and I miss a little bit more focusing on the pamphlet and the vision. However, many of those issues were connected to what's happening with XR and the vision of XR, how we see our movement. So it was connected, but I would like to be focused more on what is next, what is the future of our movement, where we should go. I would like to hear more from other people about it. That's my feeling about this circle.
Great, thanks, Carolina. Ben?
Yeah, I found it really valuable. I'm kind of wondering about these videos being recorded. I mean, I just had a look on YouTube and there's usually less than 20 views. And I do wonder if we're sacrificing more in sort of like, you know, in familiarity and integrity than, you know, we're actually gaining by having these things recorded. But then at the same time, I actually really do like to watch the other groups that have been happening. And I really am curious to see what happened in the other group. So, especially James, like saying he yelled, like I'm definitely curious about that. Yeah, so it's kind of a bit mixed and balanced.
Sorry, are you done?
Yeah, sure. I mean,
okay, if you have a little extra thing. No, you're good?
Yeah. I was really interested in what Kevin was saying about Indigenous people in Canada.
Great. Okay. Thanks, Ben. Kevin.
That's a perfect segue, Ben. Thank you very much. I really do appreciate this process. I'm lucky to have found this group. Thank you very much, Edwin and Bill. And I really, in the context of XR and growth and 2020, you know, I feel strongly about this Indigenous opportunity. I hate to say the word opportunity because it sounds so terrible, but there is a moment, there's a spark here, and it's far from their perspective, it's far greater than the actual pipeline struggle. It is actually, they're looking at it from a planetary perspective. So if XR was to because it's based out of the UK, if XR was to hit that note and not have it come from XR Canada per se, but have it come from the colonial, you know, from the UK, it's a catalyst. It's a major catalyst. That's my only 2 minutes, but I really appreciate having the opportunity to speak and to listen to everyone in our circle. And if there's anyone would like to take a look at some of those hashtags I put there to see really what's going on here. It's amazing. It's amazing. That's it. Thanks.
Thanks, Kevin. Steve?
Yeah, I guess I enjoyed the group I was in and what everybody had to say and so forth. But at the same time, I feel like I have participated in the empathy circles, and it seems that at the end, all we've done is listen to each other. And there doesn't seem to be anything at the end like, oh, okay, we're one step closer to where we're going. And I did not read that whole article. I was intrigued and initially engaged, but then I started to watch the video, and I was disappointed because I was like, oh, I got to watch a whole video, an hour and a half of a video about this in an empathy circles format, you know, where the person who was the proponents were being stopped and repeated. So I was like, oh, now it's going to take twice as long and hard to listen to.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I'm a little frustrated that the format is getting in the way of itself
Mm-hmm.
in the sense. And I brought this up in our group about maybe there's a lighter version that's a little more easily for people to be, for a larger group to be intrigued by without them backing out of the door, you know, like, oops, excuse me, no, I guess I'll leave. So I think to get to that 3.5% or whatever percent it is, as far as a larger group, I think empathy circles, or at least this type of format, needs to be a little more focused as opposed to free flowing. So that's my thought.
All right, thanks, Steve. Okay. I was always really appreciative. I feel much as Ben Stollery felt in that I feel people that are struggling with the same issues that I'm struggling, and it makes me feel better that other people think, are dealing with the same issues that I am. I was really appreciative of everything I learned from different people. There's different ways to modify the empathy circle or to use it or to incorporate it into other things. I mentioned dynamic facilitation as one example. I'm just, as long as we're there and we're trying, I feel we made some progress. Sometimes the progress is not content, but there's something else that's going on an emotional level that is beyond the content. So that's what I have to say. Thanks. Edwin, back to you.
Okay, well, just share my 2 minutes. So for the Vision 2020, I went on about, well, we got to spread empathy circles throughout XR, get everybody to be trained in it, hold circles all over the place, and then do some actions that are based on listening to the public and getting officials. So I'm like an evangelist. I grew up evangelical Christian, so that kind of explains some of it. So that was part of it. The other part was, James kind of did his kind of anger thing, strong energy. But it's really interesting because strong energy seems to release other energy too. So there was some strong, tears also released. I think, it created space for sharing some, deep pain about not being accepted in XR or being judged. There was also sort of deep laughter about just seeing sort of the absurdity of everything, that it's all kind of hopeless, but it's nice to be alive anyway, kind of thing. So it was just kind of, tapping into all these different energies. So it was just interesting how sharing strong feelings kind of releases a lot of energy. And I think that one of the benefits too is this is a space where we can share what's going on for us, and you will be heard to, your satisfaction. And so it's a place to share any kind of pains and struggles, and just to be connected with others feels good. I feel I don't feel so alone. I feel connected, and there is a sort of in terms of what's sort of the next step. It is an action in itself. Being heard, listening to others is perhaps one of the strongest actions I think that we can do. So it's not about licking stamps, doing actions, out on the streets or something. So I just wanted to kind of add that part. So that was my time. So in terms of next steps, Friday, we have another Empathy Cafe. It's an hour earlier than this one started. Hope you can make that. And then after that, we'll have a facilitators support group. So if you want to be able to facilitate, you have some projects or you're wanting to facilitate empathy circles in your groups or wherever, we're here to support you to kind of, share your ideas. And then you'll have 15 minutes or so to, share and get feedback. So that is next Friday. And otherwise, I think that's it for today. So thank you for everyone for taking part. Really enjoyed it. I like these smaller, intimate groups. Always feels good. Thanks. So.
Thank you, Edwin. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Great to meet you.
Have a good day.
See you
everyone.
Friday, hopefully.
Yeah.
Thank you.